That gets everybody. No. Perfect. Ian, how are you? I know, right? Yes, that would not make me sad at all. And it feels like there's not really a lot of huge stuff on here tonight either, but I swear when I feel like that, that's when something blows up,
Yeah.
you know? Ugh. A copy of our budget, did you grab one of these? Just made some more.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep,
I did
perfect.
get the one that was there. Thank you.
Okay, yep.
Yep. How are you?
How are you?
Great.
Everything going all right?
It is.
Hi, Patrick. Good evening. Wow.
Yeah.
Not-
it's
not that
all-
early. Good evening. Well, how are you?
Oh, good, thank you. Did you do it tonight?
No,
Oh.
I wish I could. I would just go out and be done with it. You know. How do you deal with the snow? Something with a truck.
Yeah.
How are ya?
I haven't so
How you
far.
doing?
All right.
No. Yeah, they're gonna shovel it. Takes about an hour. Yes.
I can't imagine. What's your back off?
I have a cousin that lives down Sylvan Road here, and every once in a while he'll call me to go out, and his driveway goes up and makes a 90. So I've learned now, I find out I'll back halfway up and push it across the road, then I'll put it in low lock and take it up. I can't do that whole drive at one time.
What do you have laid up?
I had a 2500 Dodge Ram. Right now it's stuck in low lock.
It's an old one.
But it works for what you need it to do.
I just do my driveway and my sister-in-law's, which is like a quarter mile up the road.
17 years old.
Yeah, I couldn't get it on the four-wheel drive at all the other day. And I ended up sliding the SM off of my driveway in my yard. It was in low lock, I threw it neutral, got in the Jeep and just yanked it backwards. And when I got back in, I had no luck. So I'm like, well, I guess I can't plow. Just 10 miles an hour, and you're going 4,000 RPM.
Right, exactly. Pretty low.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Oh, a couple people waiting. Oh. Guess we'll let both of these guys in.
You're okay?
Yeah, Rob and Carol.
Yeah, I don't think we ended up doing a notice with the Zoom link in it for the public. So I forwarded the regular link to Mr. Fall, but I think the only notice that was on our
Hey, Rob, how are you?
was the agenda.
Good. How you doing, Rod?
I'm great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was walking in.
Yeah.
I got out, I was like, oh, man, this is gonna be a mess.
The quotes we had gotten for
Oh, I
that, because
can't
our,
imagine.
oh, yeah, you would be shocked at our receptionist was just like, I just want to check. $42,000, I
Really?
think was one of them. Yeah. But
That's a lot of money, man, for a little asphalt.
all right. Well, Sandy's not here yet. All right. we'll-
Maybe caught in the snow.
It's coming from the future.
Yeah. Much.
Speed race.
Five minutes.
Okay.
Somebody else is there. Man, put lotion on my hands, are still dry.
I just-
Eerily quiet.
Yeah.
Rob, you look like you're searching for a higher power there.
Yeah, I'm just typing away.
Good resist, sorry.
So do you have a crowd there tonight?
3,
Okay.
Three's a crowd.
that's right. Two's company, three's a crowd.
So has it started raining where you're at yet, or
Yeah,
no?
it looked like it when I went home. It was getting pretty dark out. And then
Mhm.
Just hasn't done it.
Yeah, it's doing it here.
I got the plow truck ready, so we're good to go.
Right.
I got a Jeep anyway, so I like to go play in it before I plow it.
All right, well, I texted Sandy. She said she's going to be here shortly.
That's up to you at 7 after.
Yeah. Why don't we just get started? We're gonna wait too long. She will get here when she can, and we have a quorum, so.
Yeah.
We'll call the meeting to order. My phone says 7:05.
Okay.
Our first act is pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Thank you. So we're to our public comment section. Does anyone from the public have a comment right now?
Thank you.
Yes, Patrick.
I guess this is kind of a general comment, and it depends on what issues might be decided tonight. But hopefully there'll always be somebody designated to actually carry out the decision, whatever it is. For example, if more technology research has to be done, that's on somebody's plate to do the research and make a determination of what technology we need, for example. And I was willing to help with stuff like that too, if I had the knowledge, but we can't get that new technology soon enough. And most of the other things on the agenda too, we always have somebody to execute it. That's just my general comment. I think the budget, people should read the budget as understanding that money is being put in the budget in case we need to spend it, and sometimes we don't spend all of it. The numbers may not turn out at the end of the year to be as bad or, as less good as it shows there. In previous years, you can see that. You can see that in the 2020 to 21 amended budget versus the actuals for that same time period. The actuals were substantially better. That's just a comment I have in general, for people to keep in mind as they're reading the budget.
Perfect. Very good, thank you. Dan?
Yeah, well, since the open space preservation development ordinance is on the agenda this evening, I just kind of repeat my statement from the last meeting and just remind everybody that it's a development tool, right? It doesn't preserve open space like not developing does, or making lot sizes bigger does, right? It's used to develop land. So when we're making the ordinance, we should make sure that there's something in the ordinance about, we use the development tools where the development is supposed to be directed by the master plan and not out in the middle of, the middle of the cornfield somewhere, or in the middle of a row of 5 or 10 acre lots. It's near the sewer and water and other infrastructure. And so I'll be here every meeting that's on the agenda. Just want to make sure that hopefully that gets included in the ordinance when it finally makes its way to whatever it does. That's all.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that will close our public comment portion. And so now we have our presentation of Citizen of the Year for 2021. And this year, Carrie Franks was nominated and selected by the board as Citizen of the Year. Carrie could not be here tonight. I talked to Carrie. He was honored, and he was kind of flabbergasted that he was selected. And I told him on the nominating form, we all felt he has really given a lot of time and himself to the Water and Sewer Authority. And so in recognition of that and his other helpful ways, this is his award, and we would give it to him tonight were he here, but he will just have to come and pick it up next time he's here for a meeting. So congratulations to Carrie Franks. This away for him. Yay, Carrie. He didn't zoom in either, so he's not on the Zoom. So if you see him around, mention it. Okay, next is the proposed budget that you see in front of you. Board members, I gave you a copy of what the changes that we made at our board meeting last week. I think I got all the information in there. I put the transfers from the water, from the general ledger to the water fund for what it was lacking, which was about $85,000. I asked our accountant to confirm that number for me, and I haven't heard back from her. But as best I can tell, that was, what the water fund was short. So I think that's just what we plug in that hole, and then also it's reflected on our, in Department 223. It's the one of the items on there, it's line out 85,820 is there also. So we have this number, this report that looks very numbery, very financial. And this final column has our proposed budget. We also do every year a General Appropriations Act, which is a wordy document, but also talks about the budget. And one of the things it mentioned was what Patrick mentioned tonight is that the budget is just, it's not a mandate to spend. We are budgeting funds. We may or may not need to spend them, but this is just a ballpark figure at this point for what we expect next year. So we can make this available to the public now. Amanda is going to work on the General Appropriations Act, and we'll get that online probably next week. And we should be on target to have a public hearing for the budget at our next meeting, which is March 1st. So we will, there's a notice we have to send to the paper, so we'll set a budget hearing as part of our regular board meeting on March 1st. The public can tell us how they feel about the budget, and we will possibly adopt the budget that night and be ready to go for our next fiscal year. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Moving on, we have the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from January 11th and January 25th. Presentation of bills and board reports, committee reports.
Moves to accept the consent agenda and present.
Rod, second.
Great, thank you, Kurt and Rod. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. And then, then I guess we'll need to approve the regular agenda.
I have one thing that I would like to add to it, if I could, please. I got a reminder when Subos sent an email to us this morning. In the past, we've always written off anything less than $5, $5 and less when we go to close the tax out. The county has now adopted $10 or less. So I would like to make a motion that we amend ours to go from $5 to $10. I guess we put that in the agenda. It's out of the motion now.
Okay, so we'll add that to the agenda to consider the change and write-offs. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
$10 or under.
Right. Okay, and then since Mr. Thal is here tonight and he is here to talk to us about the consideration of signing the Leone SRI agreement, I would like to move that up to the beginning of new business. That's not a big jump, but maybe able to get him on his way soon.
I would move to accept the regular agenda as edited, changed, amended. Thank you.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nays. All right, motion carries. Under unfinished business, the National Flood Insurance Program, last time we met, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, Sue Dickinson from Midwest had offered to assist us in this. She is a floodplain manager. I sent her the information for the contact at the state on this. And I also printed off the sample ordinance and resolution in application, and I will send those around to you tonight. I think that is what Matt Ochapinti suggested we use when we want to adopt something like this. So unfortunately, there's really no big movement here tonight on this item, but I'll send the ordinance to you and we'll continue to work with Mr. Fall and Sue and get this accomplished. So I'll just make a motion to table this item.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Kathy, supported by Rod. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And, opposed, say nay. Motion carried. Discussion of Sylvan Township accepting online payments. So I know Amanda did a little looking around. NTA has a sample resolution. This is the sample resolution. And if I remember correctly, the board would determine, the board has a part to determine, the treasurer has a part to determine, and I believe the board determines which types of payments we will take, as in permit fees, taxes, water payments, and then the treasurer makes the decision as to which type of payments we would select, which on their list includes Diners Club and Discover and some other Visa, of course, and MasterCard and e-checks. Got started a little early. I mean, we got started here, but we are at the second item under unfinished business. You're welcome. So let's see, so does this identify who we're going to be using? Are we ready for this at this point, or is this something we're still discussing?
Like, the two we were looking at was point of the project was the
Yeah.
deal. And most of the Chardon Township fees.
Right, and I think our website developers said they had the most experience with point and pay also.
So I would feel comfortable contracting with point of pay.
Okay. I thought the resolution said on here,
It doesn't designate.
it doesn't designate on
I don't think
here.
it has to be designated. in this.
Okay. All right, well, if we, what would the board like to do on these? So the first choice here is whether MasterCard, which types of cards, or EFTs would be accepted. I mean, I would imagine Visa and MasterCard are pretty easy to accept, and then, the electronic fund transfers, those are the checks, correct?
Correct.
That feels like those would be
For the ACHs.
ACH. What about debit card?
Debit cards always,
Are gonna be
at least in my
MasterCard or
business, it
Visa?
runs as a credit card.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Okay, so we'd be comfortable checking those three, or those Visa, MasterCard, and then the final one where it's blank, we would put EFTs or ACH.
Okay, that's into a public.
Well, no, I'm sorry, right underneath other says debit cards or electronic, oh, transfers from, I'm sorry, I was not reading that right.
So that would just be ACH,
ACH.
which they can do now anyways.
So we're not comfortable with Discover Card and American Express,
Probably really doesn't matter what credit card.
right?
Okay,
I know from my side, it won't matter because from my side, Discover and American Express charges a bigger fee. Whoever has those cards, I'm sure probably knows that.
Right.
Because they're gonna be paying that fee plus a processing fee.
Does it matter to point and pay?
No.
No, they would accept all.
that's a good question, yeah.
I don't know where they, I don't know what they turned out.
I don't remember.
Because they're not eating fees.
And so I would make sense to allow it if it doesn't.
Yeah,
We don't incur.
I'm good
a
with
greater
that.
cost.
So we could.
All
do
the credit
of
cards
those.
and ACH.
Okay. FT, ACH. Okay, and then we could.
Probably was- that was the point.
Right, right. Well then, okay, so then.
But I would think it would be worth it.
That we authorizes the use of, authorizes to proceed to implement the use. Yeah, that's true. So we could just say, you know, today, and then which types of financial transactions that may be made include. Now, I know we've talked about zoning permits.
Water and sewer, they already have ACH. So I guess it's whatever Kim's comfortable with. For them.
Right. Well, that's the authority too right now, isn't it? That's kind of a different, even a different entity, a different EIN number and everything.
Yeah, that's true.
So right now, until we are dissolved of that, I think we should keep that separate, so.
Yeah, I think you're right. So yeah, that's a good point.
Special assessment payments?
No.
And so, tax payments?
No.
So there's no water and sewer, so we're basically doing this for zoning permits, building permits we don't do, burial right certificates. Or we could, right, might as well.
And then the last one can't be done within the township offices. So I think all of that is done online.
Well, but they did allow for them to come in and pay at the counter. That was one option.
Or-
With point and pay that.
Oh,
There
yeah.
was an option for them to come in if they wanted
And
to
use the
pay
credit card.
something, yeah, then they could use their credit card.
Right, use it here.
So I must be.
So they must set something up in
Yeah.
here.
Or you just have a device for this. Working with BSNA.
And so if I'm remembering correctly, there's a $500 setup fee and a monthly fee that we have to pay.
You know.
50, is that what it is?
And so right now, why would we not accept payment for the water and sewer?
It's a separate entity right now.
Because it's not the
It's the
township, so
authority.
people will be making, you know, payable to us right now and they right there.
But if we,
If we dissolve,
Yeah,
or when we
but
dissolve,
what it's saying is, should we allow,
then that's yes.
but we just have to go back and modify this
Right.
resolution?
We can go back and,
Okay.
I mean, we've modified others, so no reason we couldn't.
all right, and let's see, the following departments are authorized to accept such payments. Well, let's see, so it'll have to be the zoning department. Right? And we'll say. from the department,
It's a burial.
right, clerk's department. Zoning department, clerk's department. Susan gonna be taking payments up front, and she's not really a department, but
I kind of assume she is. if
yeah,
they're
I
gonna
kind
set
of
it up
think
that
so
way.
too. So, I mean, when we budget, she's in the general government department. Should we put general government or put,
She doesn't really have a title of office manager.
no, I know.
That's what she is. So,
She's an office assistant. I think it might even be receptionist. Okay, let's put that, but zoning department, clerk's department, we'll put receptionist to cover Susan if she's doing that. Okay, so the resolution 2201 for the acceptance of payments by financial transaction device. Whereas Public Act 280 of 1995, NCL 129.221 authorizes the Township Board to adopt a resolution authorizing the acceptance of payments for financial transaction device. And whereas it has been determined by the treasurer of Sylvan Township that acceptable financial transaction devices include Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express, EFT, ACH. And whereas the financial transaction devices that may be accepted comply with the township's depository resolution under MCL 129.12 of Michigan compiled laws. Now therefore be it resolved that February 1st, 2022, the Sylvan Township Board authorized the use of financial transaction devices and authorizes the treasurer to proceed to implement their use according to the following policy. Financial transactions that may be made by financial transmission device shall include zoning permits, burial rights certificates. Following departments are authorized to accept such payments by financial devices, treasury department, zoning department, clerk's department, and receptionist.
You skipped over one part.
Which part that is?
The
Yes,
financial
financial
transactions.
transactions cannot be made by financial include.
Real and personal property taxes and special assessments. And I will say that I will talk to another treasurer that's been on it for a long time and see what is involved.
All right, that would be great.
I'm just not real sure about it right
Thank you. Okay. So there's the resolution.
Kurt moves to approve.
now. Second,
Okay, and since it's a resolution, we will do a roll call vote. Kurt,
Yeah, just out of curiosity,
Okay.
is the resolution 2022-01, is that consistent, are we number resolution?
Yeah, yeah.
Kurt, yes.
thank you. Amanda? Yes. Thank you. Kathy? Yes. Rod?
yes.
Thank you. Sandy? Yes. Great. All right, resolution is adopted. Motion carries.
Thank you for working with me on it.
That's how we get forward together, right? Progress, we work together, so. The updated fee schedule, I'm going to make a motion to table this again. We talked a little bit at the budget meeting that we have, had an unintended consequence of increasing planning commission and ZBA members' pay. And now the fees we charge don't cover their services. So we need to look at the fee schedule. However, with everything else going on, I haven't had a chance to really talk about it. I want to ask you guys to think about it. If you can think of any, good ways to come out of this smelling like a rose. We're trying to do the right thing. We think you made a bit of a mess there. So,
Maybe send the fee schedule around to us. So that we can
okay,
all have a chance to go over it.
okay,
I haven't
Yeah,
seen
we'll
it
send
in
it
a long
around.
time. So
okay. All right, well, I'm going to make a motion to table this item.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, motion to table by me, supported by Rod. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Oh, sorry,
I
Kurt.
have a question on previous online payments for services. On the agenda item here, there's a recommendation to contract with Point Pay. What are we doing with that part of this?
That's what we will. It has to be
So-
else.
We're not making a decision on it now.
That's right, and I think we'll have to have a contract probably from Point and Pay to consider, so they'll have something
So
that they
ask
would
for that.
provide. Good question though, Kurt.
This
Thank
just
you
allows
for-
us to do it, is my understanding.
Right, it authorizes, the board authorizing this item and Rod to proceed to look into it, so I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The open space preservation ordinance, we have a scope of service proposal from Rebecca Harvey. So she sent an invoice for her services so far. This is her scope of service proposal. It's 15 hours and it's $100 an hour, so the cost is $1,500. That includes 2 planning commission meetings for a total of 4 hours, 1 township board meeting for a total of 2 hours. She's counting on virtually attending those, as we are as well. Maybe a staff meeting. She's got 6 hours to develop the draft ordinance and 2 hours for revision round 1.
I have a question on this. So is this a firm lump sum price for this, or is this kind of material? To them?
Well, I don't know, and I know the last scope of work we had was 500, and I think the invoice ended up being 600. So the last scope went a little over. So I only have history to go on from there. I want to say it's solid. We could ask her to make it solid, and if she's at this point and needs more to check with us.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, it looks like a pretty good scope, but it really should have, this is being done on a time basis with cost not to exceed 1,500.
Okay.
Then if the PC meeting is only an hour, then you would save $100 and
Right, I see what you're saying. Yeah, and I would think that she would be agreeable to that. I think. 'Cause I don't think, I think if anything, the meetings are probably not likely to be less, but certainly if she didn't attend, say, 2 planning commission meetings, I would expect her to not charge for that. We could put into our motion tonight a not to exceed. And then we could make sure that we're kind of keeping a cap on that.
Is there anything wrong with tacking for a little bit extra? Just in case?
I don't see that there's anything wrong with that. This is not a budgeted expense for us this year. I think we do have buckets of money where there's funds there still. So we could maybe put a little extra on it or just say not to exceed and have her check in with us. That's her estimate right now.
I think as long as, like, Attorney Thal is usually not here for our entire meeting. He comes for the time that we ask him to come for, and I think that, if the planning commission and the board wants to make sure that she knows the time that she would show up, so she's not there for the entire meeting when only, 20 minutes or so might involve her, but then that makes her estimate way more reasonable.
I'll make a motion that we accept the scope of service proposal from Rebecca Harvey, not to exceed 1,700.
I'll second that.
additional discussion.
Mhm.
So when this says 2 planning commission meetings, it says virtual.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right, so I think that's as opposed to Rebecca is from the west side of the state, so I think she's a good 2-hour drive. So it's nice to have the virtual option, so she can attend it, otherwise we'd be paying for her drive time too, which is great.
So then the review meeting with staff, the first staff meeting, is that virtual or is?
I would
It's travel.
assume that she meant virtual, I don't think she'd be traveling for that. So yeah, I'm assuming that's virtual, there would be a, yeah,
That's all.
okay. All right, any other discussion? All right, let's see, we have a motion from Rod, supported by Sandy, to approve the scope of services proposal not to exceed $1,700. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we're to new business, and we move to the top of new business. The consideration of the Leone SRI agreement. And Mr. Paul, our attorney, is here today to help us make sense of this, hopefully.
All right. So we spoke about this a little bit last month. And I was going to contact and reach out to Leone Township's attorney, because what it involves is a settlement agreement with Jackson County as the plaintiff against Leone Township, Columbia Township, Hanover Township, and Liberty Township. And it was a lawsuit over the bond used to pay for Southern Regional Interceptor line that was constructed. And so this lawsuit's been going on since 2015. And it basically stems from the fact that the townships were not putting enough money aside for the bond payments and not collecting enough for the bond payments. And under their contract with the county would make up the difference, is my understanding. And then the townships, it's basically a lawsuit over making the townships pay their share of those bond payments for that Southern Regional Interceptor. Those townships involved all signed a contract with the county for the issuance of those bonds and are liable for those costs. So, but it's been a long going lawsuit since 2015. And just recently, say within the last 2 months, suddenly an agreement has come out where they're trying to settle the case, but they want non-litigant parties, which are, I know it includes Linden Township and Sylvan Township, among others, who are not a party to that litigation. They want to use funds that they have paid into the sewer authority for use to help pay off those bond payments that are due to the county. And so that's where, I spoke with their attorney because I had some real serious concerns about the township signing on to an agreement like that. And I really did not really get anywhere with the attorney. I had a number of concerns, and, still my recommendation remains the same. But, basically my concerns were this. Number one, I don't understand why litigants in a lawsuit that's been going on for 6 years feel that they can pull in non-litigant parties to sign on to their lawsuit in terms of a settlement. I mean, that's very unusual. I mean, I don't know why anybody would sign on to somebody else's lawsuit, basically. We're not a party to that. And the reason we're not a party to that is because we're not a signatory on those bonds. We didn't sign on and say that we're liable for those bond payments. It was the townships that got sued that are in there. And the reason for that is that the construction of that SRI project had nothing to do with the flow from Sylvan Township or Linden Township to Jackson County's, to the Jackson County Treatment Facility. So really, we had no reason to be involved in that bond for that construction of that interceptor. And, we don't use it for flow. And, there was never a reason for us to be a part of that. Now, once it's part of the system, yes, as we pay system expenses as part of the overall flow going into the system, yeah, I mean, it's possible that we pay for operation and maintenance on the whole system. But for construction of an interceptor or construction of an extension, frankly, it would be unlawful, I believe, for us to use our ratepayer funds to pay for an extension that does not benefit those ratepayers who are paying for the construction of that interceptor. So, I expressed that to Leone Township's attorney, Matt Jane, and I said, look, I think there's potential ratepayer suit if we say, yeah, sure, use our ratepayer funds to pay for your bond payment obligations. Because our ratepayers have nothing to do with, really have nothing to do with it, have no liability for that. But what I did indicate is if you're going to do that, we would at least have to have indemnity in the agreement to indemnify the township. So if somebody were to sue Sylvan Township, Leone Township and the other parties to the suit would defend us. I mean, it would not make sense that we, as non-litigants, we would say, okay, sure, use this 600,000 in this other account under the authority account, sewer authority, that doesn't really benefit us, but go ahead, use it. But if we get sued, we got to defend ourselves and, pay our own attorney fees. And if there's damages, we got to pay it. To me, that makes no sense. Their attorney for Leone basically said, well, we don't think there's any issue with Headley, but in any case, we won't agree to indemnity, which I thought was pretty unique. If you thought that there's no issue there, then what's the hardship of indemnity? It's meaningless. But they won't indemnify us. So there's no way that I can recommend that we would be a party to that settlement agreement without indemnity, which they've said they won't provide us. So that's kind of really where we leave off with them. I've talked to Linden Township's attorney briefly. I think he's kind of on board with what I'm thinking. He really hadn't been up to speed on it at all. So I don't know what Linden Township will do, but regardless, I don't think, I certainly can't recommend that we enter into that agreement. It's kind of, I won't say a threat, but a little bit of a veiled threat that, okay, well, if you don't do this, then you're not a real player. You're not playing friendly with our authority and our system. And, maybe you're not going to be part of the future of that system. But, our flow is nowhere else to go. It goes to the pipe. We have a contract for the flow to go through that pipe. I don't see that as a viable threat from them, that at some point in the future, they could try to cut us off or something of that from using our interceptor that we paid for to flow our effluent to the treatment plant. And I can't see any judge that would say, sure, you can shut that off. I mean, what are people going to do? It has one place to go. So I don't see that as the viable threat, but I just want to make you aware, it's not like he said, we will do this, but it's like, well, it just shows that you're not a team player with us, and we'll have to see how you fit into the future of the authority, the sewer authority. So leave that as it may. I still can't recommend that you sign off on that agreement. Does anybody have any questions?
This is Kurt, if we don't sign it, if we don't agree to it, they can still go ahead and have other townships sign it and agree to it to give some of that money back to Jackson County.
Yeah, I think if we don't sign it, ultimately, they're just going to do whatever they're going to do. They're just going to take those funds and use them, I think. Even the funds that they would say are attributable to Sylvan Township. So what they did is they figured out how many REUs, which is the residential equivalent of each municipality, non-litigant municipality that puts into the system. So, each home is essentially one REU. So they kind of figured out there's a pool of money they want to use, $645,000 for past and future bond payments, so that the non-litigants are would not be liable in the past or in the future. And they want to use that fund, and part of those monies would be attributed to Sylvan Township and the payers from Sylvan Township, the REUs that you send fluid from. And I just did a brief calculation, and don't quote me on it, but I thought it was about 90,000 of that amount of money was attributed to Sylvan Township. But I think, even if we don't sign the settlement agreement, they're probably just going to go raid those funds and use them for settlement of the case. And then it's up to if anybody wants to do anything about it, essentially.
So
Rob, I kind of think, if I'm remembering correctly, that Southeast Interceptor, we don't even use that. That's coming in from the other way, isn't that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we don't have any use of it, any flow through it. That's why, it's pretty clear under case law that you can't take, our ratepayers can't be responsible for an extension of a system. The creation of an interceptor to a whole nother area that doesn't benefit them. You can't take somebody's monies and use it for that purpose. That's why they bond for it. That's why those municipalities signed an agreement, because they all benefited from it. Once it's part of the system, it's a little bit different, because then if it needs repairs or maintenance, that's just going to come out of the general pool because it's part of the system. But to create it as part of the system really needs to be based upon those parties that benefited from it. So, yeah, I mean, we don't benefit from it at all. And that's a distinction I think is important, because some of the non-litigant parties do benefit and use that interceptor. But Sylvan and Linden do not.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate that. I sent an email to Pam Burns to ask her what Linden was going to do. I thought at the last Leone meeting, she said her board had authorized her to sign, but they didn't have the exact wording. So maybe they haven't officially signed. It would be nice if they were a little bit in solidarity with us on this and we weren't just kind of a lone wolf, but I feel comfortable even if we are. With your explanation, Mr. Thal, I'm comfortable saying we'll decline to sign the agreement. Yeah, we do. I was just thinking.
So then I'll make a motion to decline signing the agreement with Leone to the lawsuit.
It's the SRI, exhibit 1 on the SRI. All right, decline signing the SRI agreement. All right.
Yeah, or say like non-litigant agreement.
Oh, okay, signing non-litigant agreement on Leone SRI, or should we reference that in there?
We could just say, I'll give you the case number. So we can just say regarding
Okay, got it.
Jackson County Civil Action Number 15-2798-CK.
Okay. All right. Okay, motion by Rod and supported by me is the motion to decline signing the non-litigant agreement regarding civil action in the Jackson Circuit Court 15-2798 CK. Is there any other discussion? All right, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. All right, very good. I think, I'm not sure if there was any other things you were hanging out for, Mr. Thal. I know we have the IE contract on here, but I don't think we're ready to move on that necessarily.
All right, well, then, thank you for letting me zoom in.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for doing
All
it.
right.
Appreciate
Yep,
it.
bye-bye.
Okay, good night. All right, so now we will move back up to the technology to allow virtual viewing of township in-person meetings. Let's see, here. So I'll just give a little bit of background. I know Amanda's been working on this and Rod and Amanda and I attended a Zoom demo of the OWL, the meeting device that we had discussed at the last board meeting. And I think I can speak for all of us when I say we weren't really thinking it was going to work with the size room we have. They had considerations where It's really for smaller groups, and in such a large room, you can put two owls together, and that can sort of amplify the sound and give you a little bit more range of vision. But it's also then picking up audience, shuffling papers or unwrapping candy. And it would have to be far enough away from us to catch us in the frame. Yeah, so I think it was the three of us, right? I think, and and the gentleman, even if Owl sort of said something like that, I really feel like maybe this is for smaller places than you guys.
Because you kind of said that any chatter in the audience would be caught, whether you wanted it to be caught or not.
So that was unfortunate, but, we still have other options to explore. So I know, we were talking about, setting aside $7,000 from the American Rescue Plan funds for this technology when we find it. And so,
And I'm still leaning towards the Logitech system that I initially proposed. And that would allow the laptop, the microphone, and audio recording device. But then I also considered, and when I spoke with Gary Marks, that there'll have to be some wiring that we may need to contract out. And then I was purchasing a new TV, right, because that doesn't.
yes.
Speakers
right.
anyway. So I was hoping, I thought if we allowed up to $7,000, that would cover those things. I still think the Logitech at this point. As soon as I
So, I'm not exactly, I know the American Rescue Plan funds are kept in a separate account. They're not in our general ledger. So the budgeting of those funds is a little different than our budgeting of our fiscal year. But we have a recommendation here that we approve 7,000 of those funds for that purchase. If there were any additional things we would need to sort of check the boxes in the American Plan, I can let you know about that, but we can certainly move forward. I think with setting this money aside, and then when we do, we can move on. We can move on.
May I interject?
Sure.
So I think the camera's only one of the hurdles. Right.
Right.
The other big hurdle and the really ugly, scary one is the audio.
Okay.
So the microphone you guys sitting behind has to be inserted into the screen,
Mhm.
right? And the audio coming from the Zoom has to be fed into the room, and those two can't loop onto each other, else you get a problem.
Mhm.
So there's some other technology that you guys get on top of the camera.
Mhm.
We do it on a bigger scale in a ballroom kind of thing.
Mhm.
The system that you guys are looking for, there's a company in town called Tel Systems, and that's what they do. You probably just want to get a hold of someone over at Palmer. Now it's Tel Systems. What's on it? But they've been in Ann Arbor since 1980 something.
Okay.
Are they in Jacksonville?
They are,
Okay.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and they would be the ones that would come out and look at the space and go, you guys need a 80-inch monitor hanging right there, camera here, microphone there, put these microphones into that system, and here's the box that makes the
Right, make it work. Okay, great, we appreciate the name, I appreciate that very much. Because I don't think anybody up here knows anything about that stuff, so we're struggling.
So I sent with that additional information, on something we should probably take this, unfortunately, one more
Yes.
time, and let me call them
Okay,
and have somebody come out here
okay,
as soon as they can and
Yeah.
just evaluate our space and make a recommendation based on.
Okay.
And maybe even see what there's.
Right,
yeah, that's
right.
true.
I worked with Tel Systems a long time ago. to, to set up all the AV for conference rooms. It was maybe not quite as long as this and certainly not as wide.
Okay.
So, I mean, that is what they do. And it's amazing. They've been doing it for such a long time through all these iterations of equipment. So I'll be excited to see what, you know, what they have next.
Oh, that's great.
It evolves so fast.
Yes.
We'll be, by the time it's in, we'll be.
Okay, so we had a motion from Amanda to table this item. I'll support that. Is there any discussion?
If it's not in the budget, can we see some kind of accounting for it? I mean, how much money is there? So if you're making a decision on $7,000 and you have to have a contingency plan for more money, do we? I mean, I don't know how much money is in there.
Yeah, well, all told from the, we're gonna get over $300,000 from the American Rescue Plan. And I know there was recently an email that I think Rob forwarded around too, that it looks like somehow everybody's getting just a little bit more. I don't know if it was, there's everybody who participated. I think ours was like maybe an extra 40,000. But I know we got received at least of that in.
So if I understand correctly, we have actually received the money.
We have received 156,000 and change. I
Okay.
thought we had received all of it. I'll have
Is
to
that
check with Kimberly.
In a board packet anywhere, like here's all the bank accounts, here's American Rescue account, or?
You know, I'll have to look because it's also new. Kimberly has been setting up, and there's a lot of guidance on this from, you know, federal government. You know, these GL numbers that we use, these are all set up by the state, you know, these are all forms. So they have this, a similar thing for the American Rescue Plan and a certain fund that it will go into. I don't know that we have that, but it's certainly something we should have and have available to the board and to the public over our dollars and public dollars and how we're spending them. And that's the part I'm not so sure on yet, is exactly how we go about budgeting those funds when we get them. I don't know if there's any sort of special way we need to do that, the resolution, I'm not sure yet. And the rules are changing. Hopefully the changes are done because they just issued their final rule, they called it, which really, I think we talked about this last time, took away the constraints and the restrictions on what you could use those funds for. It used to be only for water, sewer, broadband. Now they have removed those, so you can really use it for anything. But I'm comfortable tabling it because it will give me a little time to talk with Kimberly and really get a handle on how many of those dollars are in there, have them reflected in the right account, and make sure that we're spending that money in a proper way. Because there's reporting to be done and all of that for it, so.
And I think that one of the things that they did say very explicitly was you cannot pay the bills.
Right, and you still can't use that money for debt. We wouldn't be able to pay that, but you use that money for bond debt. Patrick was already scheming.
I want to
So.
see something tangible.
Right, right, yep. Yep, so I will look into that. I appreciate having a little extra time to table it, so we can look into that.
Nothing additional from me.
Okay, then, Stephen?
I'm good.
Okay, then we'll do a vote. All in favor of tabling, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. Let's see, we are down to the IA contract, infrastructure alternatives contract. This was kind of late in coming. The current contract expires here in February of this year, so just this month. IA didn't bring forward this contract to Bob Skull. I think it was until January, and he let them know that that's not really sufficient time for the board to review it, and the attorneys and everything. So they are going to, it's my understanding, they're going to honor our current contract while we take our time to look this contract over. So I wanted to send it to everyone so everyone had it to look at. I know Bob Skull has questions to IA, the contract has increased the amount and the hours. They are now, I think our current contract's 32 hours. And now they're saying 40 hours. And so there's a dollar amount increase also. So he had some questions about that to them. This is also a 4-year contract. Whereas in the past, I think we've done 3-year contracts. So I would be in favor of maybe keeping it at 3. So I don't know that we're ready to vote on it tonight, because I know, we would want to have a report and the approval of Mr. Stoll, and I don't think he's quite there yet. But I wanted to let everyone know that this was here, and we are looking at it and working out any details.
And I know one thing it covers, because of the raise, it will eliminate some overtime hours.
I'm sorry, well, I'm looking at this.
Some overtime hours.
Oh. But then actually adding that, the actual hour. As a more.
I feel like they said that last time. I feel like we still get overtime bills, so I really want to believe that that's true. But I think that's part of the questions that Bob Skull had, for them. And really, sometimes there's some things that come in a different bill that can't be done during regular hours. And just for him to get clarity on those things and when, what would our actual dollar amount look like?
Certain things can only be done in low usage.
Mhm.
Is the big thing. That's why the filters get.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. One of the things that Bob Skull and I have been talking a little bit about is this new contract for them is for 40 hours a week. It's for $120,000 for the year. And that when the Water and Sewer Authority dissolves, well, almost even without that, that's a big chunk of change. We could almost hire a Bob Hollowell in an assistant for that amount. We're not gonna get Bob though. Bob works for IA. He's the guy with all the history. So I think, it makes sense to continue to engage them. I also know we all talk about Bob Hollowell's not gonna be around forever. And he's probably 2 or 3 years away from not being there. So in my mind, this is dovetailing maybe nicely where when he's not gonna be the guy anymore for IA, perhaps we will be ready at that point to have someone that we will hire and employ to run the treatment plant such as he does right now.
Oh, I see.
You know what
That's a
I
good
mean?
idea, yeah.
So, we didn't budget for those things, if the Water and Sewer Authority dissolves this year, we may have a need to expend some more funds. But we didn't budget for that because we don't know exactly if that's going to happen or when, but I'm just thinking big picture down the road. These are things that I'm thinking about, talking to Bob about, we're growing and the water plant's there. And we want to make sure that we're being smart with the money. So that's why I was sort of in favor of maybe a 3-year contract instead of a 4-year, because it would allow us, it's just a year shorter. Bob pointed out that the contracts have a escape clause or 60, 90 days. So if we need to.
The sewer authority does, the maintenance is all paid for, with no problem from the bills coming in.
Oh, that's true. The sewer, yeah, it's the water.
So we just kind of be taking each other.
Well, and that may or may not be more hours for Bob Skull, like we're doing them now, right? So.
But, with the water plant operations, let's say you hire somebody, they can't cover it 24/7. So now you're looking at, obviously, they have to cover it for them if they're sick, or what probably makes more sense is to go out for bid. 3 different companies, you're spending $120,000. You really should have 3 bids saying, yeah, that's the going market rate. If it's a fair price, it's a market-based rate, then So I wouldn't worry about the 3 or 4. You
Okay.
terminate, the out clauses are good,
Right, right.
but we probably ought to have Bob Skull put together an RFP, request for proposal, for the services that Infrastructure Alternatives is currently providing. Use their contract. Develop that specification, and go up for bid. You know, Go to the MTA conferences. They're all there, lots of companies that do.
Right, and I, and if we were, yeah, it feels like a little bit like since this contract is gonna be expiring soon, I feel a little bit of an urgency. I don't wanna be foolish with money because we feel an urgency either, we're make sure we're being fiscally responsible. I think there is something to be said for Bob Hollowell's history.
Yes.
And that he is a special person that, you talked about, exchanging parts or pieces. He, in my mind, doesn't have an equal weighting with, maybe somebody new who came in, but, again, he's not gonna be around forever, so we can't, rely on him.
He's been
because
here from day one.
You're longer than any of us.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
He's seen a lot of people come and go.
What are they currently charging per month for standard services? Do you know?
it should be, it's like
It's a
8,000.
little over 8,000, 83, 84.
We can look in the
Something like
bills,
that.
because it should be on our
Is it in the budget?
bills roster.
Oh, bills.
Yeah, well, we budgeted 120 for this year. I think we budgeted 102. But let's see. Here's the check register. I is right at the top, 8,000, yeah, just try 4,000.
8,400?
I'm sorry, 8,400,
8,400.
yeah, a month.
So that seems like a huge increase.
Well, and let's see, because I think our current contract, 500 times 12, it's 102,000. So that's what I thought we had budgeted this year. So this one's 120, that's an $18,000 increase. And if it really does keep down the overtime, that's one thing, but like I say, I feel like I've heard that before when we increase hours and we still seem to have overtime charges.
Because to me, that looks like a 17% increase. Which seems absurd.
Well, how much was the increase from?
It's an
IT,
8.
right? I mean, it's like everything is more expensive.
Everything more, our current contract is for 32 hours a week. The one they're proposing is for 40 hours a week. So that accounts for some of that increase. They're saying 32 hours isn't enough for us. We need to spend 40 hours a week.
So is the 8,397, that includes the overtime?
No.
No, so that doesn't, so where do we?
Well, and sometimes there's overtime and sometimes there's not. And you'll see them come through on the bills. So if we wanted to do a deep dive, we could look and see how much was the regulated and how much did we spend on overtime charges.
Does the overtime come in as another bill?
Yep.
So it's separate from
Yep.
this base price?
I did a separate pay rate as well.
Higher pay.
Yeah.
Right.
Because like in here, they have it at $70. $80, I'm sorry.
80 hours an hour. Well, let's, we will table this at any rate, because we're not ready to decide anything. I think it's a good idea to ask Bob Stoll if he'd like to, go and see what other places would bid, and then we can, make a thoughtful, informed decision then.
Maybe you and Bob could sit down too. Have them explain things to you. Or.
Yeah.
just lost it.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, I'll make a motion then with that, we're gonna table this,
I'll second.
and then we'll get more input from Bob Stoll. Is there any other comments? Okay, all in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. nay, opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried, table that, carry that over. All right, so then the last thing we have on here is the one thing that Rod proposed, the Washtenaw County, is currently they write off anything $5 or less,
10,
but now they're doing $10.
they're doing $10 and less, and we're still at 5.
Okay, and do we have a policy on this, you
We
think?
did make something up, I believe we did.
So that would, we would be changing a specific policy in the
Right.
policy book?
And the only thing that would change would be an increase from 5 to 10. That's the only thing that would change. And then that would put us in compliance with the county also. Because technically, right now, when we end the tax year, anything that's between $5 and $10, I guess I'll go after, they will not accept it as a delinquency. So I'm not really sure how I go after it yet, but they won't accept the delinquency. $10 and under will cover.
So they, if you owe $9,
Right up.
okay. But if you owe 11.
Gotta go after. If you owe 11, then it can go in as delinquent. That's correct. Whereas before, 501 could go in as delinquent.
Wow.
So I guess what I'm doing is I'd like to make a motion that we amend our over-under policy and change the amount from $5 to $10, which will put us in compliance with the county.
Second that.
Motion by Rod, supported by Sandy. Any discussion on that? Nope. Okay, we will vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries. All right, that is the end of the business agenda portion. Now we are to the second public comment. Hey, Patrick.
Sure, I'll go again.
Okay.
That's very good information. I'm gonna keep this in mind when I pay my property tax.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. I know. I know.
How much to deduct from my bill now safely. I'm kidding, yeah. A couple things, came out this meeting. One, the discussion about Leone and the Interceptor and the possibility, although Paul thought it was unlikely, the possibility that Leone might try to cut us off or something. He thinks that's unlikely, but I seem to recall in the back of my mind, and maybe some of you do too. Was there some idea floated around a few years ago to connect up to Chelsea sewer somehow? And run our service through them? There probably were environmental concerns with that, but
That's what the authority would like to do, yes. Turn it
Yeah.
around and send it to Chelsea.
might be a win-win situation.
We're not, we haven't seen much traction with that.
But you
That
know what,
might
there's a
change.
lot of new players
Right,
since the
that's
last
true.
time we had
You're right.
conversations with Chelsea. So I think it's a fantastic idea. I think Linden Township, like you said, we're all in favor of it. That's why I would really like Linden to sort of stand firm on the signing with us because, you know, we're the only two entities that are in this Leone thing from Washtenaw County. When we talk to our county commissioner, help us sell this to Chelsea because it doesn't make sense. We're here in the western area of Washtenaw County, sending all this stuff to Jackson. Let's help Chelsea. We have money we can give them to help accommodate us at their plant. So it hadn't been very well received in the past, but there's a new mayor and there's a new interim city manager. So perhaps, you know,
All new
yeah,
players.
try again. So that would make, yeah.
And we're not that far off coming from Westchester to their plant.
Right. And it opens up a lot of possibilities for cooperation with Chelsea potentially too. if we Start working with them. Okay, I'm trying to speak up louder too. The rest of my public comment was about the open space ordinance procedural stuff. Not so much the content, with Rebecca. Actually, first thing I'd like to ask is if her slide deck from the planning commission meeting, where she gave that hour-long presentation a couple weeks ago, can be made public. I don't necessarily mean the website, maybe I just get a copy of it and I send it out to my network or something. I thought it was an excellent presentation. I think it was an excellent presentation. I think everybody should see it. And I'm not just saying that because I agree with most of it, even though I do substantially. But it's just a very well laid out presentation. Second thing is, now the funds have been approved, it comes down to kind of scheduling with Rebecca. I understand that there might be an issue meeting quorum at this February's regularly scheduled planning commission. I don't know exactly. But I'm kind of wondering who is in charge of pulling this together between Rebecca and the planning commission to find, the next date for the next meeting. The third comment I have about the open space ordinance is that I wasn't aware yet that the decision has been made whether to revise the planning commission's latest draft that was written by Robert Call or rewrite it. But the statement of work seems to be leaning toward a rewrite. Might not be necessary. Rebecca was mostly focused in the presentation on just, as she said, removing some of the roadblocks that were written in there. You might just be able to excise some of that stuff and do it and actually have a finished product much more quickly. And I'm talking about the planning commission draft, not the VP, not the V3 thing so much. Build on what's there. Actually, it's kind of what we were trying to do with the V3 draft way back then anyway. But, those are my 3 comments about it.
Wonderful. Well, to answer real quick, I think it's really Carol, and Carol's on the Zoom tonight. I don't know if she wants to comment. Carol and myself that will be coordinating with Rebecca. Carol will be being the liaison for the planning commission, and she and I, talk about these things. So I think it'll be a team effort. And I think her PowerPoint presentation is online. Amanda said, you should be able to find it on the front page, so.
I should have looked before I asked.
It gave us an opportunity to say, it's on the website.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Any other public comment?
Did I mention that I think the open space ordinance should be used where it's supposed to be used in your development before? Yeah,
No, we'll put it on the record again.
no, I thought tonight was a good meeting. I like being in person a whole lot better than I like not being in person. I get being on Zoom is great and it's convenient and you can have your beverage while you're watching the meeting but you don't get the feeling that what's going on here is a real thing and you guys care so much. I mean, it was a long time of like watching a really weird TV show that I didn't think people cared about and being here for a couple in person. I appreciate you all again and appreciate what you guys do. Thanks, Dan.
I would just like to say, I appreciate Zoom meetings because I can hear everyone. There's people at the other end of this. I can't hear a thing you're saying. I couldn't hear you, Patrick. I know you tried to speak up. And you in the beginning, I couldn't hear you either. So, I understand that some people really appreciate the in-person meeting, but some of us appreciate the auditory that we pick up from a Zoom meeting. Just saying.
And I'll tell you this, if you guys build your system back right, you can build assisted listening right into the system. So, it says on all your meetings, it says, we will make every effort to help the visually and hearing impaired. An assisted listening system, once you guys start using your microphones and the Zoom is piped into the system, is a super inexpensive add-on that anyone could use to hear everything super, super clear.
Very helpful, thank you.
And Fellner could also help with
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Well, and one thing I know they do at other places we never have is to have a podium where if somebody wants to do a public comment, you come up and there's a microphone there. You know, that's most of the meetings that we go to, that's the thing. So here, you know, if you're in the front row, you might get heard real well, back row, it's a little
We
harder.
actually
so-
have a microphone over there.
Yeah,
It's
I know
just
we
that-
used it for.
One channel of that is burnt out. It was burnt out when we came in. So it only,
Fellner number 7614506.
it only
Yes,
encompasses
somebody.
these mics.
Okay, well, all the more reason to get somebody in looking at it. Board of Trustee comments, I wanted to mention to everyone, and I forgot to mention it when Paul was here. The agreement that we sent to the city that Paul drafted for Westchester, for the portion of Westchester that's in the city. The city attorney looked at the agreement and didn't, he said he's gonna advise the city not to sign it. It wasn't because he didn't like it, he said it varied too far from their current ordinance. And it would have to go through an ordinance amendment process at the city, which sounds lengthy. So,
Where did that agreement come from? Did it originate with them?
it
And they said-
originated, Mr. Fall drafted it.
Okay.
He based it on the franchise agreement that Chelsea has in their ordinances. The problem with the ordinance that Chelsea has is it doesn't have a legal description. The first part of the ordinance says, this land, we're gonna allow Sylvan to provide water and sewer. And then it says legal description to be inserted. So there's, and the rest of this stuff, and so it's kind of frustrating because if, Dave Reinhardt, I see your hand right now, I'll come around to you. So if the, not having a legal description in the ordinance feels like that's enough to trigger an ordinance, you know, amendment right there.
Right.
So perhaps we wasted time, going down this agreement, avenue. Unfortunately, at the time, all the meetings we were having were with Mr. Hannafin, who said it can just be a simple agreement, it's no problem. And now Mr. Hannafin's not there anymore, and the attorney's saying, whoa, it's a problem. So, you know, Mr. Thal and I, Julia Upfall from the city of Chelsea, and Pete Flintoff, we're talking about trying to get everybody together. It should be easy. But also, you know, like Bob Stoll mentioned to me, like the city, we are providing to the city. So we are doing an awful lot of legwork right now on this, where right now, maybe it's just time to go back to the city and say, okay, we took a stab at it.
Yeah.
You didn't like it, let us know what you want to do. You know, there's a couple provisions in their franchise agreement he doesn't like. There's a part in there that says that we are going to give the city 3% of the rates that we receive. And then it says we can take that 3% and tack it onto the ratepayers. So we're not losing money. So the people that live in the Chelsea portion of Westchester are going to pay high water rates plus 3% that we're going to turn around and give to the city for what? If we're maintaining it, we're billing, like we're doing all of those things. So Mr. Falk's thought was that that feels like an unlawful revenue on the city side of things. You know, he's really on top of what's a lawful expenditure. He talked tonight about Leone. So he left that out of the agreement. And I think that was a sticking point for Chelsea. They wanted it in there. So I'm hoping, you know, Mr. Falk can make his argument. Maybe they can see that that's really not something that feels fair to those residents that are going to live there, an extra 3%. So that's just ongoing. I just wanted to let everybody know, you know, where that's at. Westchester is more than ready to get this done. So I let Sean LaFear know they're, you know. So hopefully next week we'll get those attorneys together and we can have something.
So with the initial franchise agreement, it was written in more general terms where you would add the parcel description each time. I mean,
I think it was specifically for, because the funny thing is we have the same ordinance in our books and it does have a legal description. And I gave it to our assessor and she said that legal description is for that 16-acre parcel in the city. So our ordinance is up to snuff, their ordinance is lacking that legal description, and they're the ones who are giving us the permission to do it.
Well, at the last meeting, Scott Cooper did make a point that made sense to me with CRC potentially moving into Sylvan Township and needing our services. Would it benefit us to have something that would encompass additional properties in the future?
You know, I think it's probably a baby steps here. To me, I think let's get this done with the city and get some good faith going and get some good, relationship building. And yeah, but hopefully, because there's gonna come a time, right, where, it's, they're growing as well. Chelsea is growing. There's gonna be a couple 100-acre parcels in Lima. There's that big parcel by the high school at 3 or in US 12. They're gonna be providing utilities there. So I think eventually we could, and we were in a different spot. I'd say, let's just talk more about, hey, this big picture, but I think right now we gotta, walk on eggshells and do this part, and then they'll see that this would be a greater solution for all.
But we have to keep in mind that this is not our problem.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Westchester should work it out with Chelsea, and then they should come to us and say, will you do this for us?
Right.
And we'll gladly comply.
And I think we were talking about this, and Mr. Hannafin was saying, oh, it's a simple agreement, it won't need to be much. We just said, well, we'll have it was basically a coin flip. Do you want to do it, or do you want to do it? So we'll have our attorney just draw up a simple agreement.
We should have them.
Well, exactly, at this point, we felt like that was,
That response.
so you're right.
It's
And
costing us
lesson
money.
Lesson
for-
learned,
for
yes.
what,
And I will tell you, if you guys look at our, our revenue and expense thing, Mr. Stahl is very generous with his time. I don't think we'll see his time for this meeting on the bill tonight. So I know we see him a lot, but he is very generous when he is billing Sylvan Township. So I want people to know that it's not every time you see him, see a bill come through. I think we paid him maybe $10,000 this year. So that's.
We have him run the water plant.
I agree with what Kurt is saying, is like, if Chelsea let us start, and we have no information really, and then we give them something, and it doesn't fit what they wanted, then they need to fix it. And we don't do anything else until they
Right.
put their words in it, and then it comes.
Right. And like I said, that's kind of a lesson learned for me, because we felt like that was gonna be easy, and it wasn't easy, and I should know it's never gonna be easy. No. But, so yeah, you're right, and that's what Bob Stoll was saying, really, the onus is on them. They're the ones that should be driving this, they're the ones that should be, so that's a relief to me. I'm just gonna wash my hands of this and go, but I don't feel good about that 3%. That's gonna be tough for us if they are, I don't know.
But it's understandable what you're saying, that Westchester Farms figure that out with them, because that shouldn't feel good to them either.
No, I don't, yeah, but they probably won't care. They're developing and getting out of it. We're gonna be the ones who are gonna be getting the phone calls from people saying, hey, I talked to my neighbor across the road, they pay this amount, why do I pay this amount? I know, and that's really, it is.
Right. But
Sean
you said,
appears to
yeah,
be
but you're not
gone,
in Sylvan Township, so.
And I could see Chelsea throwing something in where we get part of their electric purchase from.
Oh, Sibley? So, yeah.
And they brought that into the city, that was part of their
Yeah.
electric.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what they come up with. I think you guys are right. We're gonna let Chelsea drive this,
Yeah.
whatever they need to do to make their ordinance right, and hopefully that 3% can go away.
It's listed as.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
What?
Well, we haven't, so far since we've been back to in-person meetings, we've been, just having public comment from people in the public here in person. Or if you want to make a public comment, you can send, as always, an email to the clerk. And then that person can read the public comments. So Dave, I see your hand up there. I don't want to start a precedent where we'll be doing a whole lot of back and forth, but I see you and I see that you have a question, so it's hard for me to not recognize you.
Gotta fix this permission.
Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna see, because right now, Dave, it looks like we're set up just for view only. So Rod's gonna see if he can change, otherwise you'll just have to email me or Amanda or whoever you would like to address. Oh, let's see, it's Carol. There he is.
You can unmute yourself, Dave.
There?
Hey,
Okay, yeah, I'm really okay not speaking if, so not to create a precedence here. Would you rather do it that way?
that's fine, go ahead. We'll just this once.
That's fine. You would rather have me talk or not talk? What was the answer?
Yes, go ahead, Dave.
Oh, go ahead. Okay, several quick things here. One, I would trust Dan Russell's suggestions as far as equipment and all that. He's involved with an incredible company. And then also, rather than try and reinvent the wheel, possibly observing some other townships or entities that have it set up already in a room the similar size. We can't be the first one here. Secondly, related to IA increasing their rates, I mean, Kurt brought up some really good things tonight, including, you know, that's almost a 20% increase, but I can see that happening with the growth in Sylvan Township, the proposal for Pierce Road, the Chelsea Square, more in the manufactured housing section there, Sylvan Crossing, and every one of those needs a meter. Has problems sometimes, has to be installed. So even if it was an increase for just this year, I can see the workload going up for IA. Just having watched it, I mean, it's going to more than double our water meters that are out there. So maybe that's the reason. If so, they should have stated something like that. And then lastly, on open space and development, I mean, we can go from let them develop anything to ban development, and both of those would be plagued with issues. And I'm hoping that if the 76 unit development on Pierce Road comes to fruition, that some open space incentive would be available there, or that the township could push for, so that even if the dwellings are there, at least some of the land looks a little better, very similar to the presentation we had. And then lastly, I've noticed the number of townships or entities buying development rights. And I was just wondering whether that can even be a consideration with some of our American Rescue Funds. So thanks for letting me talk. I'll leave now. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Dave. All right. So I have one more comment, but I don't want to out of the board member comment section. Anybody got anything they want to add? So I don't know, it was sort of fortuitous that we had this meeting tonight because you know, the snowstorm's coming, snow again, and we have to get ready. So we were talking in the office today about whether or not we were going to be closed and how that was going to look like. We figured Thursday for sure would probably be a day of closure. We weren't sure about tomorrow. And since then, Washtenaw County has closed all non-essential offices for tomorrow and Thursday, reopening Friday. Ann Arbor City has closed their municipal offices tomorrow and Thursday. So initially I was like, we can get in here and do 3 hours in the morning. But I don't know whether those calls would be something that the supervisor could make, or whether that needs to be a board sanctioned closure of the township hall.
I think
So-
supervisor could make that call.
Okay. Okay, well, I felt the same way. I thought just, we had the meeting tonight, so I would ask everybody how you felt. And then I also feel that if we were closing the township hall, the couple people that we have that are hourly, which is Susan, our receptionist, should be paid. That would be a paid day for her, where we're closing the office. If she wanted to come in, we told her no. I think some of our salaried people are gonna come in. I know Rod said he'd probably come in. I might come in. I think Catherine's gonna try to come in. She was off Monday. So that can be what it is, and those people are salaried, so that doesn't matter. But I would like to put up a notice tonight then that we will be closed tomorrow and Thursday. And then plan to pay the 2 hourly people that are affected by that closure. Okay.
It's budget for it.
Yeah, yep. And that's the beauty of budgeting for 52 weeks, because. So. Any other board member comments? Okay, then I'll make a motion to adjourn at 8:35. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carried, meeting adjourned, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thanks, you too. Be safe next couple days.
Stephanie, I just texted you the Fellner systems that he mentioned.
Oh, okay.
Jackson Road.
Yeah,
So they're.
Yeah, we looked at,
and I'm so glad.
Chelsea's
I know,
sewer
I
system.
know, that you had experience